Thank you, Joe, and good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the virtual finance meeting of Thetford Town Council on Tuesday, the 17th of November. We have got a couple of members that are having technical difficulties, and hopefully they'll be able to sign in and join us shortly. So please bear with us. So I'll move on to the first item on the agenda, which is 52120, declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interest to receive any additional interest not already registered. Do we have any, please?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
In that case, I'll move on to 52220, which is apologies for absence. Mr. Crimmen, our minutes secretary, do you have any, please?
Unmuted. No, I haven't had any apologies, Chair.
Thank you very much.
I'm hoping Mike will come in now, but we'll see.
No problem. Yeah, if you can just let me know in the chat that he's joined us, that would be fabulous. Okay, so we'll move on to 52320, which is the minutes of the last meeting held on the 20th of October, received by full council on the 27th of October as a true record and to be signed and initialed by myself in some virtual world. Oh, Roy, I've got your hand up, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's just for Chris. I don't know whether he sent everybody another meeting invite, yes. But I've just had one. I wondered if he got me in.
Yeah, no. When you add someone onto the meeting, everybody gets that update. So I've just added Mike on, and I'm hoping he'll be with us soon.
That has come through.
Good.
Thank you, Roy. Okay, so if we go back to the item on the agenda, which is the minutes to confirm as a true record, please. You've all had these previously. They have been circulated. Any comments or queries on the true nature of them, please?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Approve the minutes, Madam Chair.
Okay, all those in favour?
Agree.
Yes.
Agree.
Agreed.
I think we'll move on from that one. Thank you all very much. So on to 52420, which is the committee financial decisions. To note, committee financial decisions made. And you have them there on the screen in front of you. Whilst this is to note, are there any questions or queries, please, committee? Oh, excellent. It looks as though Mike is waiting in the lobby. Could someone sign him in? Greetings, Mike.
Greetings, Chair. Sorry to be late.
No problem at all. Completely understand that you've had some challenges today.
I'm just trying to ring you, Mike.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Are you with us visually or just via the phone?
Not by the phone anyway. He's on
by a computer.
Yeah, I know that.
Fantastic. Good. Just so I'm mindful of making sure that everybody's included in the discussion.
Yeah.
So any questions or comments on the committee financial decisions before I move on from that item, please?
No, thank you.
Okay, I'll move on in that case to 52520, which is the contracts update. To note the schedule of contracts, please. Again, this has been circulated in advance. Any questions or queries, please, committee? Councillor Harvey, please.
Yes, I don't know if it's the right place to do it, but due to the fact we've had some issues over the trim style installation, that make any difference to the finances?
This is merely the contract side of things, so the tenders and that side. So ultimately, whilst it will affect the actual delivery and the schedule programme of works, ultimately it's irrelevant in terms of this particular document.
Okay, I'm really sorry.
No, it's all right. Not at all. Valid question. Well asked. Any other queries? We will duly note the contracts update. Thank you all very much. So we go on to 52620, the financial report for month 7, to receive and approve the income and expenditure reports for month 7. Thank you, Alan, for realising that should be in green. Again, this has been previously circulated. Are there any questions or queries? Or Alan, is there anything that you would like to highlight at this point in time to the committee, please?
Thank you, Chair. The one thing that we did this revised budget based on the July figures, and I think what it does show is that we are on track in terms of that revised budget. So it is likely that we are going to end up with a deficit of about 40,000 at the end of the year, which is a little bit worrying. I think, you know, if we can keep in terms of our revised budget, at least we have a full understanding of what the impact of COVID-19 will be on the council. But this is also going to have a bearing on next year's budget, because if we continue into the lockdown for next year, we can expect some quite significant differences between what we think, if we did a historical normal budget and what reality will be. So it is a little bit concerning going forward, but we are on track. So at least we have an idea and can quantify what the impact of COVID-19 will be.
Thank you, Alan. And obviously, I move to reassure both the public and the council and the committee that obviously we did make that provision when COVID some of the impact was becoming apparent, that we did make a provision within our reserves, and we are utilising that. But obviously, that is a short-term measure, and we're mindful of the long-term impact. Are there any questions from the committee, please, on the financial report for month 7, please?
Could I ask one, please, Madam Chair?
Of course, Councillor Hollis.
Thank you. So the red is where we're going to lag behind. Am I right? The red is not good for us.
In terms of income, red is actually, even in terms of expenditure, red in income means that we under budgeted, so we're not going to get the money that we budgeted. And in terms of expenditure, it means that we're going to incur more expenditure than we actually anticipated. So if the net of that is a red, then it's a bad omen in terms of our performance against our revised budget.
Could I come back on that, please, Madam Chair?
Of course you can, Councillor Hollis.
Thank you. So basically, looking at some of the committee spending that are in red, does this will need to go back to the committees to be reassessed? Am I right in thinking that? Thank you.
I think every month, like for example, during the month of October, I have given the committees a report based on their financial position at that particular point in time. So they are actually aware of it. What I think in totality is some committees have performed better than we budgeted and some haven't. So the fact that we end up with a net overall 3,000 deficit indicates that where a committee is doing relatively well against their budget, the other committees are not. But they are getting that type of information, and we would expect that type of fluctuation going forward.
Oh, thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I just thought that you know, some committees have got the red worse than budget. So I mean, say at the certain times what we're in at the moment, everything's unpredictable as such. But I just wondered if that where there is going to be a variance, that it goes back to the committees and they reassess their budgets for next year, etc. But thank you, Alan. Very clear. Thank you.
Chair. Hello.
You, Dennis. Hello, Dennis.
Sorry for being late.
and everything, Chair. I can't get this hands up thing to work. It doesn't come up for me. So if I interrupt every once in a while, I'll give my apologies ahead of time. Cheers.
No problem, Councillor Crawford. As long as I know you're there, I can remember to find you as well.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay. So I'll open that back up to the floor. Is any other questions, queries or comments on the financial report for month 7, please?
Mike Brindle had a little yellow hand up.
Oh, there we go. Yes, I'm sure I've seen something and then it disappeared. Councillor Brindle.
So, thank you very much, Brenda. I'll try and come washed next time we have a meeting. I really just wanted to follow what Jenny asked about, because I think it's really important that we get as clear as we can. I suppose, want to ask through you, Chair, Alan, if he feels that there's any further action that other committees need to be taking, bearing in mind that what we're forecasting is quite a significant we'll spend more than we've budgeted for, or rather more than we've actually got, and there's a strong possibility it will continue next year. Is there any advice about the way we conduct ourselves as a council in the next few months? Do we need to change anything particularly, or do you feel that we've got the options covered?
Chair, if I could respond, I think we do have the options covered. You know, if you look at the summary slide, you know, personnel are a little bit down on their income, for example, but there's also a revenue recognition issue. We've got the property rentals that we administer. We haven't sorted that out yet, so that's going to eliminate part of that deficit. And then personnel have also got quite a significant saving on salaries and wages, for example, but that's also funding the toilet overspend. So if you look at ALP, for example, it's overspent by 3177. If you consider that we've been paying £4,000 a month for our extra cleaning regime, overall we're actually not doing too bad. So I think as long as that total deficit, you know, stays within, you know, if it's at £5,000 either way by the end of the year, I think the council can, you know, give itself a good slap in the back and say job well done, because I think that's really what we have to worry about. So if in the next 2 or 3 months that the net kind of deficit or surplus really goes out of hand, then I think we have something to be concerned about. But as we stand at the moment, I'm certainly not concerned. I'm fairly certain that we'll achieve our revised budget.
Can I come back, Chairman, please? Just to say that I think if providing we're all vigilant, which I think is the story, then that's really good news, and I thank you for the planning that's gone into making that possible. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you, Councillor Brindle, and I think it's key that we did, once we realised exactly where we were and what was going on, that Alan did and the rest of the senior management team did an incredible piece of work in terms of the revised budget, and exactly what the impact would be and where our issues were. So we've been able to deal with those, and I'd like to thank them for their work, because they have worked really, really hard on that. Any other questions on the financial report for month 7, please?
No, thank you.
Then in that case, if we're happy with it, can I have a proposer and a seconder to recommend to full council, please?
I will
propose the recommendation. Yep.
So I heard Mike proposing, and was that Brenda seconding that?
It was, yes.
Wonderful. So I'll go round the virtual room, as it were. Councillor Brain?
Yes, support.
Super. Councillor Brindle?
Support.
Councillor Canham?
Support.
Councillor Harvey?
Support.
Councillor Hollis?
A support.
And then myself supporting. So thank you all very much. That's unanimous.
And how about me?
Oh, Councillor Crawford. Sorry. Right, I'm going to rewrite your name in, because I... Councillor Crawford, it's not unanimous yet. You may be different.
I support, yes.
Thank you very much. That is now unanimous. I do apologise, Dennis. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. I was late. My fault.
So we'll move on to 52720, which is the approval of payments made. We've received the listing. Alan, as usual, in his usual efficient way, has done an oversight paper for us, and the recommendation is on your screen. Are there any questions or queries regarding the papers having been that have been distributed, please, committee?
No, thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the recommendation is that the making of these payments be approved. Obviously, it is a recommendation to full council. May I have a proposer, please?
I will propose, Madam Chairman.
I think I heard Brenda first. Councillor Harvey, was that you seconding it?
Yep, that'd be okay.
Thank you very much. And again, I'll go round the room. So, Councillor Brain.
For.
Councillor Brindle.
Support.
Councillor Canham.
Support.
Councillor Crawford.
Support.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes.
Councillor Hollis.
Support. And
myself in agreement also. So that's another full house. Thank you all very, very much. So we move on to 52820, which is an update on the budget for 2021-22. I'm really sorry, guys. Normally, as you'll all be aware, November is budget setting and precept setting. And normally at this meeting, we'll be scouring over the plans, and has already been alluded to by members for next year, and the impact that that has on our residents in terms of precept and what we can do and what we can't do. Unfortunately, because some of the committees didn't meet until very, very late. In fact, there were two committees that didn't meet till Friday. I refused to have the budget being set on the agenda for today, because it meant that our officers would have to work ridiculous hours to get this out, and you committee members would not have adequate time to review it, ponder over it and interrogate it, which is our duty. So I apologise, and we will have to have an extra meeting. As you can see on the screen, our gut reaction to what we've pulled together so far, there is a significant precept increase forecast at the moment. My feelings completely out of it. This is for this committee to decide the way forward. Normally we review it and we either recommend it to full council or we kick it back to the committees. And that will be done at the additional meeting that I propose that we hold on next Wednesday, the 25th of November at 2 o'clock. It might be prudent that we invite the committee chairs along, so that you committee members can interrogate those spending plans and understand the objectives that those committees wish to achieve and how they want to achieve them. That's my summing up of the update. Alan, is there anything you would like to add at this stage on that?
No, Chair, I think that does sum up where we're at. We've done a lot of work on the budget, but there's still a lot of work to do. And I think it's very important that we have that meeting on the Wednesday, the 25th, so that the Finance Committee can have information to make an informed decision.
Are there any questions from the committee, please? Councillor Hollis, I have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully support what you've said about taking it back to the committees. I think that's the fairest way of doing it, and not make any decisions today.
Yeah, we are not taking back to the committees as yet, because this committee has not reviewed the budget as it stands as proposed by those committees. So that is the reason for the additional meeting on the 25th, so that you can all see the final situation. And then as a committee, we decide where we want to go with this.
Yeah, that's what basically that's what I'm supporting, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis.
I just go back things around the bush. Sorry.
No worries. Councillor Brame.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say, really, with what is happening and everything else, I don't think we have any other choice but to have this second meeting, look at what everybody is doing. I think we're actually going to see that COVID is not only not good for people, it's extremely bad for budgets. And we're going to possibly have to take the bull by the horns and have a look at this to make sure that we are more than COVID ready and look after our residents.
Councillor Cannon, please. I've got your hand up.
Yes, basically, Madam Chair, I agree, because I don't think any councillor wants to see double-digit precept. So if that might be the case, it'd be a good idea that we invite the chairs along, and then they can see what the situation is, and perhaps get in touch with their members. We'll make a decision on what we want to do once we've got the paperwork.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey, I've got a comment from you in the box, but then I've got Mike with his hand up. So, Chris, you support 3 out of the 4 on the page. What have I stated that is contentious?
Nothing. It's just the fact that out of 4 things on the page, there's 3 I'm okay with. There's 1 I'm having palpitations over.
Would that be number 2 then, Chris?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why it's important that the chairs do turn up to the comments. But you know,
I couldn't agree more. It's the right way forward.
Yeah, and I mean, Alan has pulled everything together, but it's like anything. You need time to sit, reflect, and review. And with something as big as this, normally we've had a good 2 or 3 weeks where we've had that information available to us, and we've been able to digest it, pick Alan's brains, and so on. That just hasn't happened, which personally I'm incredibly disappointed, to be honest, because this summer this committee and this council approved a timeline for the budget setting process, and that has not been adhered to. So the consequences of that are that we're having to have an additional meeting, and there may be knock-on ramifications from that. I'm really disappointed in that respect, that actually we haven't done what we said we would do as a council. Councillor Brindle, I've got your hand up, and then I'll take Councillor Brame.
Thank you, Chair. First, I think I certainly agree with what you're proposing, i.e. not to postpone the discussion until a later date. I do think it's important that you and others don't take the blame for this, because nobody's offering a blame. No one's asking you to do so. It really has been very disappointing that, given the progress we thought we'd made with combating COVID in, say, July, we're where we are now. But the fact is we are, and it's something that we've had to react to, and I'm confident that the reaction's been very good, considering what we discussed in the previous agenda item. I just wanted, however, to look again at bullet point 3 and 4 together, and just consider whether we need to look a bit longer. I'm all in favour of another meeting. That date's fine. We're not going to be able to give a report, I guess, to the next full council, because it's too late. So there's still going to be a further delay. I'm concerned about how we bring in the other committee chairs. I wonder whether on the 25th of November they will have enough to go on to enable them to take part in the discussion. The tendency for committee chairs, quite rightly, is to defend their committee and to say, well, everything we want to do is essential. I don't want there to be some kind of a whoever shouts gets the best deal kind of situation. It may be that at some stage we need to look at the alternatives. So one is a double-digit precept. One is arguing the toss as a council what we think are the most important things to preserve, and the third is to say there will be such and such a percentage cut across the whole range, and in the end you probably go to the third one because it's kind of fairest, I think there's a real chance that we're going to find there's an awful lot more discussion needed, maybe even more than one meeting. Certainly, as it pans out, it might be that we have the meeting on Wednesday and the next finance meeting, and then we take it to full council after that, and it maybe that's inevitable anyway. So I think I wouldn't want to underestimate how much discussion there needs to be in an unprecedented situation when so many people are going to say, we've done the work, we've put forward our plans, and now someone is coming along and saying, knock 10% off or whatever it may be. I'll just make another simple point. When there's a possibility of something like a double-digit precept increase, or the alternative is to make that sort of percentage cut in the way we spend our money, we have to bear in mind there are some things which are very difficult to cut, and in particular staffing costs. And there are other costs which are kind of fixed whatever we do. They're not easy to cut. So a lot of a cut, if it was to be a cut, would fall on the proposals to make improvements to have progress in Thetford. It's a really difficult pill for all of us to swallow. And I think we need to reckon on a meeting on Wednesday and the next Finance Committee meeting, perhaps, to take it on. I'm happy to have the committee chairs at the next meeting if they want it, if that's appropriate. But I wouldn't underestimate how much discussion and how much heart-rending needs to take place before we agree again.
Thank you, Mike. In simple terms, yeah, you're right. And that's why I wanted the meeting as soon as is possible, in case we do have to go through a really lengthy process. I'm obviously mindful that we have a very, very thick black line in the sand, which is the end of January, that we have to get our precept request into the local authority. Because if we don't do that, and we don't agree a budget, and we don't agree the precept, we get nothing, and the situation is a whole lot different. I wanted to pick up on one of your points that you made. We could possibly pull together a minimal budget, as you were, and you rightly alluded to the very much fixed costs that are inside that. We could pull something like that together so that there is an example of, this is where we are, this is where we could be. Somewhere in the middle is perhaps where we will be happy being. But the reason, my suggestion for inviting the committee chairs is so that they can, and you're very, very right, that they are responsible for those budgets. And I've worked very, very hard to ensure that the committees are responsible for their budgets. But that's part of our role, is to pull everything together and see the big picture and the overall impact of those decisions. And this is where we need to share where we are with them, so that whilst we can all fight our own corner, if we all continue to do that, the impact on our residents is this. And it is going to be, as you rightly say, a weighing up of our aspirations and what we can actually reasonably achieve without, burdening the residents with those aspirations. Does that help?
I think that's very fair, and I think you're right to say that we should have an early meeting, give us more time with which to play. And I do think people need time for the prospect to sink in, because either prospect, either a double-digit precept or, for the sake of argument, 10% off what's being done, either of those is dismal. And people have got to make a very, very hard choice.
It is horrible, frankly. Yeah. Councillor Brame, sorry, we get to you eventually. I apologise.
No, it was in fact good to listen to the fact that what we have got to do. I have a concern that because we haven't had the paperwork quick enough, and this is going to be the first time we get to discuss it. I'm not sure whether the chairs of other committees are going to be a help or a hindrance. I tend to look at this as we have the draft budget there. We can see that the shortfall is going to be an amount. It's ever so nice to put it into, it's going to be double-digit precept increase, but there will be an amount there that we fall short by. So now we've got to look at how we decide that we're going to do this from a finance committee. And I wonder whether we're going to need a lot more discussion between ourselves without the chairs, so that when we go back to them, we can give them some more information. I don't know if it's possible, but if we look at whatever the deficit is, and we now know that it's to get rid of it and do everything we want to do, that's double digit. Can we get Alan to possibly do some projections of what the deficit would be per small increase? I mean, if you go with a 0 increase on the precept, basically that's going backwards. It always has been. It's ever so nice to say, yes, it's no increase, but no increase is a deficit on what we have as an input. And I think especially this year, because I'm not sure that the actual tax base is going to have grown like it does most years. So we could very much face a deficit with a 0 precept. Is it possible for some figures to come out with the deficit will be with a 2.5% increase, 4% increase, a 6% increase, so that we as the finance committee can look at that, and then it gives us something more to go back to the chairs with and say, look, this is what it's going to be. I don't know if it would be more helpful than having the chairs fight their corner in the first meeting. We're definitely going to need more than one meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Braham. I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Brindle. I'm just really mindful that these budgets are the committee's budgets, and I think it would be incredibly ignorant and arrogant of us to say there's a 10% cut to everything, because there are some projects that we have in the pipeline that we have committed to and we need to continue with. And actually further funding is based on that commitment. But at the same time, we need to make people aware. So I take on board what you're saying about inviting the committee chairs to that first meeting, and I will be guided by the committee. Councillor Brindle, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I must say I do think that Roy's got a very strong point. I would like the first meeting. It's my immediate reaction, Chair. You've considered it. I may be jumping in too quickly, but my impression is that what we need to be doing at the next meeting on the 25th is clearing some alternatives. Roy suggested alternatives based on certain levels of precept increase, which is a way forward. I think we also ought to look at the maximum, so that we can continue all the work we're proposing, and possibly we should look at some other way forward. There might be 3 or 4 alternatives, but I think it'd be helpful to the chairs if we could present those alternatives to them. I think, as Roy was suggesting, so we work next Wednesday on what the alternatives are, to give them a choice, so to speak, and then call them perhaps to the full finance, the normal finance committee meeting at the beginning of December, and say, these look like the possible alternatives. What do you think? And if possible, then get them to say yes to that. And then secondly, so your advice is what? Where would you like us to go? Where would you like us to recommend to full council? If if the committee chairs turn up as well as ourselves, that's quite a good number of councillors. We may well be able to get the feel of something that would go through full council quite satisfactorily. So I'm basically saying, yes, I agree with Roy.
Thank you, Mike. I just highlight that the town clerk has put into the chat that the tax base is lower this year, and obviously would be mindful that potentially it could be lower next year, because obviously the tax base is based on those people who pay council tax, and as our residents face further hardship, some of those will be entitled to relief on the council tax, so that obviously going forward they don't pay it, so again further reduces our tax base. So just highlight that to you and obviously make you aware of it, because we could be having this discussion again this time next year. I'll take Councillor Canham and then Councillor Harvey, please.
I'm just wondering about all these meetings, and are we going to get it done in time? Because the full council don't meet in December. So, and if you take January, then it's the end of the month, and we're supposed to get this off to Brooklyn before the end of January. So
we can call a special full council if we require to do so, and I would suggest that something like this would certainly meet it. And if it is this committee's desire to request a special full council meeting, then obviously, as per standing orders, as long as we follow those procedures, we can hold one. And oh, there we go, the town clerk has just confirmed that.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey, please.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm going to cherry pick some of Roy. I like some of Roy's ideas about showing us the options, but I also believe due to the timescale we should have the chairs involved at the meeting, to be fair. So that is my opinion.
Okay. The overall majority view, actually, I'm going to call Dennis in because I haven't heard from you.
Yeah, thank you. It's because every time I go to Hands Up, that page, all I get is a statement of Privacy Act. I can't get through to the Hands Up. So I have been waving at you for a while. I was not just being friendly, I was trying to get your attention. But
sorry,
yeah,
Dennis.
I'm in support of what's been said mostly. We've got to consider that some of these committees are have statutory duties, and they've got to be funded properly. That's a little thing on my committee, support of my committee. But generally, I think we need to do what's been suggested and get some sort of ideas of what kind of increases in the precept we would need to cover our budget, and then have another meeting and a special town council meeting. So thank you anyway for pulling me in.
Thank you. Councillor Hollis, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm in agreement with what's been said by both Councillor Brindle and Councillor Brain.
Okay, so
we need to move on.
Yeah, bearing in mind that this was an update and taking the feedback from the committee, what we will do is tweak the update as we go forward. So the further meeting on Wednesday, the 25th of November at 2 p.m. will solely be for the Finance Committee, and we can macerate the budget as it stands with all the desires. And then I think we will need to stand up the traditionally cancelled December finance meeting to again go through things. I don't want to preempt any decisions from 25th of November, but at least that gives us time. Mike, I've got your hand up again. Councillor Brindle?
Councillor Brindle failed to unmute himself, an unusual mistake. What I wanted to do was be picky about the dates. Finance Committee on 25th November, that's fine. The next one's on the 15th of December, and again on the 12th of January. The full council will be on the 26th. I think you might have expressed a concern. I'm sorry if I'm putting words in your mouth, that we don't want to be saying on the 26th, we're not really ready to go through. We've got to have lots of arguments and lots of further discussion. What I'm wondering about is this. If we got to the point at the second, after 2 finance committees, that we did need an emergency meeting of full council in December, then having a finance committee on the 15th of December gives us very, very little time before the Christmas break. So I'm kind of wondering whether we might think in terms of bringing that finance committee forward, at least by, say, a week to perhaps the 8th of December, so that we could, if necessary, then say to full council, if you wanted to have an emergency meeting, there is time. Am I being too cautious, or am I trying to avoid a clash of dates?
I get what you're saying. I mean, ultimately, theoretically, the decision simply is whether the draft budget has been put through, this committee reviews it. This committee ultimately either decides to recommend it to full council or not to recommend it to full council. If it chooses not to recommend it to full council, it has to go back to the committees. And I think it's as simple as that. And yeah, and then the committees have to stand up quickly, and we deal with it in January. I mean, ultimately, had the timescale been kept to and the project plan for the whole budget setting process that was agreed in the summer, we wouldn't be having these conversations, because we'd have had the indicative budget last month, which was the plan. So I'm really, really disappointed that, you know, not all the committees have done what the full council agreed should happen. But that's by the by. I think we can do this. Where there's a will, there's a way. And you know me, I like to wear my positive pants, Mike. Councillor Brindle, Councillor Brain, sorry.
I know that Mike and I are agreeing an awful lot tonight, but you know, he's the one with some hair, which is thinning, I might add, but he has still got more than me. I must admit again, I think Mike's right. I think we ought to perhaps look at bringing it forward. Having a quick word, you know, I would ask Alan that if we're going to have this special one on the 25th, we're going to have proposals and things to go through. He's going to have to do a lot of work from that. What would be his timeline at saying, yes, we could get it a little bit early? Because if we do that, it will give the committee chairs the luxury of having some time, because it is very, very close to Christmas, you know, with some dates, and they could, you know, that particular date, which is our normal meeting, would be a date where we could have a special, or, you know, a little bit more. So I'd like to see us bring ours forward, and then it will give us a bit more time to actually, if necessary, go back and have a proper fist fight from the chairs, and see who can shout the loudest and who can negotiate what we're going to do, because it's going to be.
I don't believe there's a negotiation to be done. Actually, it is either this committee will recommend the draft budget as put together by the chairs, or this committee won't. It is as simple as that. That is, you know, what's on the table. The committees haven't put together, well, we could have this one, or this one. They have said these are the plans that we want to do, and these are our plans to support them and our works plans. So on the basis of that, I believe that it's a simple yes or no answer. It's either a vote for or a vote against. We are discussing something that we haven't got the detail on, and I'm actually going to close down this, because this was ultimately an update on the budget situation. And the fact of the matter is we do not have the information to make a decision, and we can't preempt the committee's decision. And I've been very mindful not to do that. As long as we give the correct notice, we can decide a date at the meeting on the 25th, and we can also be flexible on times and that side of things. So I think the first stage is the meeting on the 25th, and we go from there.
I think that's ideal, as long as we're looking at it flexibly. You know, I'd love to have your confidence, Chair, but I have seen cats in a bag before, so we'll see where we go when this all sort of comes out in the wash. But yeah, an agenda item will be, can an agenda item on the 25th be to set a date for the next finance meeting rather than approve the date that is normally there?
No. It will be a one agenda item, which will be the review of the budget, and ultimately this committee decides whether they agree it or don't agree it. It is as simple as that, because of the work that the committees have put into this, we can't keep flip-flagging, and we don't have the time to do it. I'm actually going to move on from this agenda item, because ultimately we're doing a lot of discussion about something that hasn't happened yet.
Could I just express a final concern, please, Madam Chairman?
Yep.
I understand what you're saying, and I understand that we have some flexibility, and we can come back to, and we can think about it again on Wednesday, the 25th. And I would have personally been quite happy with Roy's suggestion. If we say no to the budget, does that mean that we then still can complete everything on time for the end of January?
Yes. But all committees will have to meet before finance meets in January in a reasonable time frame, not 2 days beforehand, and so that finance can consider the adjustment and then make any recommendations to full council.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And the clerk has noted, as per standing orders, that it does not need to be an agenda item to call another meeting. That is exempt in terms of agenda items and motions. So we'll move then on to 52920, which is correspondence to be noted and considered. Alan, have you got anything for us, please?
I do, Chair. In the last week, we received notification from the external auditors. They've reviewed our information. There are 2 points that they are raising. The first one is that we didn't put out the period covered in our public rights notice was incorrect. And I have to hold up my hand and say I read 30 days, not 30 working days. But saying that, we had to have it the public notice out by the 1st of September. We had it there well before that particular date. So we've never compromised on the public's right to have a look at our accounting records. And the second issue was just really an accounting issue. We did a change of accounting policy, and we should have restated. There were a number of reasons why I chose not to do that, because there was no statutory guidance on it. And the other reason was that we had so many adjustments and correction of errors, it would have caused quite a bit of confusion. But otherwise, those are the 2 items, and I'm very confident that next year we won't have any items because they're quite easy to resolve. Otherwise, we've had no other correspondence.
Thank you, Alan. Are there any questions from the committee on those 2 issues? I think Alan's closed them off quite well.
Yeah, I think he's answered them all. Thank you.
Okay, so then in that case, we'll move on to 53020, which is the committee officers update. Anything,
nothing
Alan?
to update, Chair.
Okay. 53120 is community engagement, to discuss and agree any consultation or media release required. Obviously, we'll have to publicise the additional meeting that we're going to have, and we'll need to make sure that the information is available to the public so they can see also what we are discussing, and be mindful of the impact any decisions that this council make on our residents. Anything else that anybody would like to add on community engagement, please?
Oh, thank you.
Right, in the absence of anything else, well, that's the last agenda item, so I'll close the meeting. Thank you all very, very much. It's never an easy time of year in terms of budget and precept setting. We have some additional challenges this year that none of us certainly foresaw when we were sitting doing this time last year. And I'm sure when we sit doing it next year, it will be a very different ballpark again. But thank you all very much for your time and your considered opinions. And good evening.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And